Today is a very special day. It's the 33rd day of the Omer, Lag BaOmer, and we have a separate session. We discuss a lot the Lag BaOmer. Just for our shiur, it's a famous story. I heard one from the Beit Israel, Rabbi Israel Alter of Gur, which when I was a little boy, I have the privilege to know him in person, get the blessing for him, etc., when he used to visit my late grandfather at his home in Haifa. Anyway, one of the students said to him on Lag BaOmer, I want to go to visit the gravesite of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai in Meron, and as you know, nowadays it's estimated at least 100,000 people goes there and pray and dance and make a bonfire around Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. So he said to him something that very deeply touched my heart. He said to him, well, the best way to uplift his memory, it's his one words. Agra de Yomei Milei. If you study Gemara or any citation from Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai and his son Rabbi Elazar, their siftotehem dovevot bakever, there in our literal language, their lips are moving in a grave, which means you give their neshama, their soul, the aliyah, the uplifting. So for sure there are songs we sing, Bar Yochai, and there is a lot of mystical aspect that Rabbi Shimon and his son reveal to our world, and it's a tremendous contribution of all the fire of Torah that make our world a better place to live, and we survive in this world because of Torah. And we are doing that in our small way. We have a last daf, the last page in the Perek Revi, the 4th chapter in Tractate Yiruvin, and we are here early in the morning of Lag BaOmer, and we're going to study this daf, and we attribute to great Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai and all of his teaching. What are we going to study today? The key point is the idea of expression in the person's very clear statement, his intent to make the Eruv. We explained it yesterday and day before yesterday that in Judaism it's important to say clearly and express your intention. But when it's come to the specification of Eruv, especially in a situation that the person is not sure if he is going other places or not, or you have to go 2 different places, you own several properties, etc., the expression is crucial to make the Eruv valid. For sure we're going to discuss other matters, but that will be the key point in our discussion today. The Mishnah tells us 52a, מי שיצא לילך בעיר שמערבין בה. We explained earlier that the definition of ani and ashir, poor or rich, it's not necessarily a fundamental money issue. It's sometimes a state of present of a person, where he is stating at that very moment. Such as a person is considering poor if he is a traveler and he's stuck in the middle of the road. In that sense, it's poor. Rich, it's for our discussion, is someone who sits idly in his house and he expresses the desire by saying something while he's in his house and not bother to go to a place he's planning to go. Now, the issue is if someone go and travel, but his intent when he is going out is not to make an Eruv and return, as we said earlier, such as you leave our city, you go the 2,000 cubits, you make your statement, or you put the pot, the food for 2 meals, and then you return. Here is just a guy who go and come back. It can be many reasons. Soon you see reasons like weather reasons or others. So the question is, what type of category, how we hold it? Later you see that following Rashi have two explanations. We basically goes by the second one. Tosfot, Rashba, and Ritva have a long explanation. I try, for the sake of our short shiur, this shiur should be much longer than just about 45 minutes. The two explanations of Rashi, we just follow the second one. And those who wish, spend the time to read both will be great. So, with that in mind, let's read the Mishnah. Mishi yatsa leilech be'ir. Such a person will have two residences. Let's say you have two property. That's one option. According to Rabbeinu Ovadia Mibar Tenura, he said, "Sheshlachuhu anshe iro להוליך להם עירוב, כדי שיוכלו ללך מחר לעיר שמערבין לה." People in that city, let's say you live in the east part of Stuyvesant, and you need to go to Pikesville, just for understanding, because it's almost attachment to cities. So you send someone as a emissary to carry the Eruv in order for people from Stuyvesant to go to Pikesville. So, and therefore, שיכולים ללכת מזו לזו לידי עירוב. So in that sense, because of this shaliach, emissary, that put the Eruv in between, people in both cities can walk from one location to another. Now, without that, you have an issue of exceeding more than 2,000 cubit. והחזירו חברו. While this guy was walking, his friend came over and he said to him, "Hey, don't you see it's a freezing cold, there's snow outside, get back, go back home." Or he said to him, "Oh, it's so hot here, imagine it's South Florida and it's a hot summer and it's, who knows, 110, 130 degrees, and he says, it's too hot, come back," right? So, what did he say? He said, "I'm going to dwell in that particular location," but he didn't reach that location. So they said, here is the issue, and we express it and we said, "Hu motar lech v'chol bnei ha'ir asurim." So because he was there and he went part of his journey, so therefore they said he can use that statement for having the ability to pass from one location to another, which is the Eruv is valid. Everyone else, no. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. That's the word of Rabbi Yehuda. Which means, what we understand. So, here the Tosfot Yom Tov explain that his idea is, Aval da'ato leilech lemachar. Even today, meaning on Friday, he returned home because of the weather, for example, but in his clear intent, since he made that statement in that location, is to go back the following day on Shabbat. So it's not that Tosfot Yom Tov said, it's not that he has a quandary, he has a predicament, he's not sure I'm going there tomorrow or not. He said he intends to be there tomorrow and he meant it, and even he didn't reach that location because of the weather, he has in his intent to be there. So because of that, we count under that, and according to Rabbi Yehuda, he can go ahead and use it. Versus everyone else, they didn't took that journey, and he, as you know, did not completed his journey. So therefore, everyone else cannot count on him, and it's applied only to himself individually. Rabbi Meir disagreed, and he said, Kol shehu yachol le'arev bepat, which means if a person is in his house and he has the category of a reach, so what we have this decree of Eruv Tchumin, that he can send someone, he's staying in his house, and we hold that the essence of Eruv is, according to Rabbi Meir, is using bread. And that's also Rav Nachman said earlier. So therefore, it's fine. But he said, Velo erav arei ze chamar gamal. Which means, remember what he said, chamar gamal? Chamar gamal meaning, one hand, one animal you ride.
You drive from behind, the other one you lead from the front.
Excellent. So how that apply here? So he said, the limit of the Shabbat limit is a very small, which means it's only from his house up to the place that he's planning to dwell on Shabbat, and if that location is up to the 2,000 cubit, he can go there on Shabbat, but only that location, that distance. He will not go further. So just in abbreviation of what Rashi said, etc., he says that he expresses in his words that he intends to go there, and that's crucial. But the big difference is, following what we said earlier yesterday, the statement of Rav Nachman, which is, if he make those statement, according to Rabbi Yehuda, it makes no difference. It's not add and not subtract anything by saying that. According to Rab Meir, it's not enough that he is not going there in that location, but he basically, according to Maharshai, even lost the other opportunity to go from the other side of his house. Rabbeinu Ovadia ben Bartanura said here, ולסוף 2,000 מעירו נמי לא קנה 2,000 לצד העיר האחרת, שמא לא קנה שביתה אלא בביתו. So maybe the only idea of taking part of dwelling apply only to his house but nothing more. So he concluded and he said, והלכה כרבי יהודה, which we'll discuss later, but basically הלכה for רבי יהודה. So the Gemara said, מה ישנאיהו ומה ישנאים? What's the real difference between someone that left his house and his friend asked him to return, and someone that that other people goes there on their behalf? That, in other words, if you make this statement that you're planning to stay there, it doesn't help them. It doesn't change them. Why you differentiate between the two? In other words, if he is basically an emissary and he expresses himself clearly that he intends to be there, why you differentiate between him and everyone else? Amar Rav Huna, hacha b'maya askinan. What exactly we apply here in the Mishnah? ומי שיש לו שני בתים וביניהם שני תחומי שבת, איהו כיוון דנפק ללאורך הווה לעני והנה עשיר ענינו. Here we talk about a fellow that owned two different properties, to two different domains. Between them there are 4,000 cubit or less. Now, because he left his second home, so he is considering a quote-unquote poor. And you remember what we explained the
traveler,
poor?
essentially.
Traveler meaning that Rashi explained he is a meandering fellow, because he is not in a state of stability in that very moment. So therefore, even in regards to wealth, that he has two places and he intends to return to the second place, we hold him is like someone who his time change. In other words, he didn't anticipate it's in the havdil. Imagine you guys are flying a lot. So imagine you take a plane, you fly, and you have a connected flight. So you left Arizona, you intend to go to BWI or Dallas, okay, and it's Friday morning. You left 6 in the morning. Shabbat start 7:30 in the evening. You're sure that you'll be there at 12, 1, 2 o'clock afternoon. You stop in St. Louis, Missouri, for example, okay, you stop in Boston or whatever, and boom, there is a issue, they're changing plane, you're stuck in the airport 2, 3, 4, boom, hours. Now you're getting close to Shabbat. Is that possible? Absolutely yes. Okay? Now it's a complicated issue, because even you take the plane and you arrive at, let's say at BWI, you arrive at BWI, if it's 20 minutes before Shabbat, and you don't have your own car in a parking lot, you depend upon a taxi or something, you're reaching a very close time that they have a big question mark if you make it on Shabbat on time or not. Mm-hmm. So that's the idea, poor. You are poor. Why does that mean poor? Because you're a traveler, you're stuck.
Right.
So that's, they said,
you don't have a home at that particular point in time, essentially.
Doesn't have a home, yes. So he can say, you know what, I'm going, the Maggid Mishnah explained, he says, I'm going to take dwelling place in that specific location. So it's an ancient time in Gemara, so you talk about tree, you talk about specific location. But the Rambam holds that it's not necessarily a scenario of two different homes. It just can be if someone take the journey to make an Eruv in a specific location. So he said everyone else has the category of rich, which means that they because they are in their houses and they have food, so they can only establish residence at the end of their Shabbat limit by depositing food there prior to the onset of Shabbat. So here we bring a source to that. Tanya name achi. מי שיש לו שני בתים ובני שני תחומי שבת, כיוון שהחזיק בדרך קנה עירוב, דברי רבי יהודה. Again, a fellow has two properties, and in between you have the Shabbat limit, because since he intends to go to his second property, so if he make the statement, I intend to be in a second property, that's fine, that's it well. So for those Israelis who are watching us, and Baruch Hashem we get all those notes from Israelis, so trace a scenario that you are living in a city like, let's say, Petach Tikva, and you have one place you want to, or one simcha, or one place you're planning to be on Petach Tikva, another place is Bnei Brak, and is a distance in between those two cities. Now you make this statement. So how you handle this type of situation when you exceeded the border of 2,000 cubits, need a location, and your original intent is to be in Bnei Brak, but because of weather or because of other circumstance, you are now in Petach Tikva, or you're now in between. So they said, according to Rabbi Yehuda, the minutes he left, he already making that statement, he acquired the Eruv. Yater al ken amar Rabbi Yossi berabbi Yehuda. Furthermore, he said, אפילו מצאו חברו ואמר לו, לנפו את חמה או את צינהו, למחר משכין והולך. Awesome. Even he says, you can go even to next step. This, let's call him Reuven. He met his friend Gilbert. And Gilbert said to him, you crazy, it's too cold, it's too hot. Go back, what are you doing here? Right? So they said, okay, he's stuck because of weather or whatever it is, right? He's stuck there. However, the following morning, which is Shabbat, he can go to his house in a second city, because he made that declaration when his friend stopped him and convinced him to stop there. Since that declaration was made, so the following day he can have the practical application, he can use it. Now, so the language of Yater al ken, it's like furthermore. It means that he, in a way, add another leniency to the word of his father. Now we need to crystallize the discussion. Is that a disputation between son and father, or is that something else? One opinion. Amar Rabba, Kule alma lo plige de tzarich. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi, his son, agree that he must say the statement that I intend to dwell in a specific location in order for him to dwell there. Ki pligei lehachzik. Their disputation is only if he is, because he is in his journey, so he is under category of poor, and he can say, I am dwelling in a specific location. That's the father's opinion. Rabbi Yehuda, and according to his son Rabbi Yossi, that's also applied with the declaration of intent, meaning the person expressed his wishes to go and he still did not left because his friend told him not to do it, so he is already under the category of poor, and he can make those declarations and it's fine, which means is addition of leniency. You don't bother to ask him to leave. Second opinion, ורב יוסף אמר להחזיק דכולי עלמא לא פליגי דצריך. If you're talking about להחזיק, which means that someone is on his journey, so everyone agreed, both the father and the son, that he is in under the category of poor, so he can make that declaration. Ki pligei lomar. In other words, if he needs to say it, Rashi said, in a clear expression that I intend to be there. So we basically, I said it earlier, we followed the second pshat of Rashi, the second explanation of Rashi. And the Ritva elaborated on this Rashi beautifully, and he said, what's happening here, in order to make a Eruv, you need to have two items. Number one, you need to be a traveler, which means you need to lacet laderech, to move to your journey, in order to be under the category of poor, quote unquote. Number two is ledaber, you need to express yourself.
But this is specifically for establishing an Eruv without food, correct?
We explained yesterday that that's lechatchila,
right,
the better way, yes.
But we're saying without food you have to be a traveler and you have to make that declaration.
Correct.
Yep.
And that's basically the second pshat in Rashi. Keman azla hada amar ula, according to whom this ula's opinion, mi shechzik baderech, which means someone left on Friday to go to his home that is in a different location, vechziro chavero, so his friend causes him to return to his city. Harei ze muchzar u'muchzak. It's like, it's a contradictory statement. Muchzar, it's like you return. Muchzak, meaning you're holding. How that can be? It's a two, what?
It's sung alike.
Yes, it looks like two different things. It's Eruv or it's not Eruv. So, אם מוחזר, למה מוחזק? אם מוחזק, למה מוחזר? If he is considered return, with the same legal status as the rest of the residents of the city, so it's not established Eruv elsewhere. So why is described as a set out on his way? And also the opposite, if he's considered set out in his way, so that he is established resident at the end of the Shabbat limit, why is described as a return? It's either way. So the Gemara said, Af al pi shemuchzar muchzak. Even that he was physically Gilbert, convince him to go back home, but as far as the traveler, since he left, he is now considering as someone who's what? Was
returned or
set out.
Oh, set out to travel.
Set out to travel. Keman, who is this opinion of Ula? Ki Rav Yosef v'aliba de Rabbi Yossi bar Rabbi Yehuda. So that's go by Rabbi Yosef that follow Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda, that in order for a person to take a shvita, to take a permanent place, is enough by being a traveler. He doesn't need to say anything. So even without expression, it's sufficient. That's Rashi said it, and also if you read it in the Tosfot, he wasn't so happy with that, but he said that it's only because of the weather circumstance. But the Ritva go and he said that Derech HaMoraim lefaresh. Usually, the way that it should express, it will be come out in a very clear way. Here you have an issue that he doesn't even need to say anything. Why? Because he starts walking, and his friend convinces him, and you say that it's fine now. So it means that it's nothing to do with any expression of words. So here we bring a story that, you know, many times in Gemara, story is like something that clarified the discussion. The Rif tells us that this story is not just another story, it's a halachic derivative from that story, that we go by Rabbi Yosef, follow Rabbi Yosef bar Rabbi Yehuda, that expression of heart is sufficient, you don't need to say it in word, and that's, by the way, the Rambam hold. But not everyone hold that way. There's a lot of, like the Rosh and others have challenged that point. But anyway, here is the story. Rav Yehuda bar Ishtata aitelei kalkala defeirei. This is a nice guy. He has a minhag to go to a place of Talmidei Chachamim. Imagine you go to Ner Israel Yeshiva in Baltimore. On Friday, you bring your truck filled of food for anyone who cannot afford Shabbat, like organization like Ahavat Israel in Baltimore, and you distribute it to all those people who in need. So this fellow has the minhag to go and bring a large basket to the sages, to the rabbis, on Friday. So he brought it to the Rav Natan bar Oshaya. That most probably was the sage that we have here. Ki hava azil. So after he left this basket, he wants to go back home. Now his house is where? It's within 4,000 cubit from that house of Rav Natan bar Oshaya. So what did he do? He need to make some type of dwelling place in between in order to make it happen. So what did he do? Shav ke'adenachi darga. So Rav Natan bar Oshaya walked with him from that place he lives, and most probably it was a colonial house, like several floors. So he go with him stairs, several stairs down, okay, and therefore he is now under a category of what?
Being a traveler.
A traveler, even it was several steps outside. Amar lei, he said to him, Bit hacha lemachar kadim ve'azil. He says, you stay here overnight, and tomorrow you go there. So it means you should be here tonight, spend the night here, and tomorrow you go there. So what do we derive from that? We derive from that he meant to say, just by walking one stair outside
he started
of the Yomei, it's already enough. That's the message. 52b, we just turned the page. Keman, whom Rabbi Natan bar Oshaya, Rav Yehuda bar Ishtata hold, ki Rav Yosef aliba de Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda. So you may think that he hold that that's follow Rabbi Yosef, that hold the same as Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda, that even he doesn't say anything, he can receive this idea of purchase or acquiring a dwelling place, even is not have the full expression. So the Gemara rejected it and said no, which means, in short, you need to have two things. You remember we explained the second pshat in Rashi? You need to have two things. Help me. What are the two things?
But if you're traveling and you have to make a declaration.
Excellent. Learn in the Mishnah. Rabbi Meir Omer, Kol שיכול לערב ולא ערב הרי זה חמר גמל. What Rabbi Meir said in the Mishnah, that anyone who established an Eruv, and he basically he negated his resident in his original place, and he did not establish an Eruv, it's like both a donkey driver and a camel driver. So they said, Keman, whom no, he said Hatan Echadaz Zimna. So he said, we learn one time this foundation. If you remember, we learned it in the 35, page 35. safek, if they using a bread as a eruv before Shabbat, and it was there before it's dark, Rabbi Meir ורבי יהודה אומרים הרי זה חמר גמל. Now, think together with me. Usually when you have safek, if you have quandary in eruv, usually you try to say it's like lenient, but here it turned around in turn to be safek lechumra, that you are more stringent, because his house avoided him from continuing another 2,000 cubit in extension to his eruv, and his eruv avoided him from taking 2,000 cubit from his house to the other side. So why we need to say it again? We already explained it earlier. Tosfot here again elaborate on that. I don't have time. So אמר רב ששת לא תימא טעמא דרבי מאיר. You should not misconstrue what Rabbi Meir said, and you said ספק עירב ספק לא עירב, הוא דעה וחמר גמל, that only if you are not sure, then it's under that category. אבל ודאי לא עירב, לא וחמר גמל. But if it's clear that the eruv was burned in advance, so he will not lose the 2,000 cubit, אלא אפילו ודאי לא עירב וחמר גמל. But even when he put the eruv, he distanced himself from that spot 2,000 cubit and go to the other way around. So it's basically avika hamal gamal, because the whole disputation between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, if he lost in both locations and is not considering an eruv, it's only in a situation that he's standing in his house and he make an expression in words. So we have an assumption that he prefer to be in his house, and therefore this expression of word is meaningless. But if someone is a traveler, and by traveler saying these statements, he retroactively express his desire that it's much convenience to make a dwelling place in a place that he is now walking. So therefore he basically lost all the other opportunities, because in that sense he is hamar gamal, is going in losing in both.
He basically doesn't have a Shabbat residence, so therefore he's limited to 4 amot, right? I mean, if he's in that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
now, we explained earlier that the key point of that is the shvu ish tachtav. They explained yesterday, and I encourage our viewers to watch yesterday's session, because we express it in a clear way what's the source for 2,000 amah. So now, here is the issue: if a person have within his Shabbat limit the 4 cubits, so if havla'at chumim, if part of the Shabbat limit within the Shabbat limit basically allow him to go to the original spot or not. So they said, Mi she'yatza chutz latchum. Someone left the domain not for mitzvah, not for any other purposes. He just did it for whatever the reason is. It can be in the Mishnah Berurah said it's even unwittingly. So afilu amah achat lo yikanes. So even 1 cubit should not return. Rabbi Eliezer omer 2 yikanes, 3 lo yikanes. Rabbi Eliezer hold it's more lenient. He says if he left his domain 2, so the Gemara explained later that he is standing in a second cubit. So it's part of the whole 4. So he said he can go back, but if it's 3, he cannot, because then he already exceeded more than 4 cubits. Now, Amar Rabbi Chanina, if someone stands at the very end, ורגלו האחת בתוך התחום ורגלו האחת חוץ לתחום, so here he said that his one feet was within the Shabbat limit.
So he's straddling the boundary. Yeah.
Yes, and the other feet was beyond the Shabbat Levi. So he said, in that case, lo yikanes. He should not return. Why? Dechtiv, we said in Isaiah 58, Im tashiv mi Shabbat raglecha. If you return away your feet due to Shabbat, so it means that the word raglecha, it's written raglecha. Raglecha is plural, which means it comes from the letter, use the defective word yud, raglecha with yud. So ktiv, it's written in plural. V'tanya raglo achad betor atchum v'raglo achad betor atchum yikanes. So it's two legs and two. See, so it's like stira. It's contradictory. Hamani acherim he. That's follow acherim. It's usually Rabbi Meir. That's what Tosfot said in Sota 12. The Tanya acherim omrim lemakom sherubo nizkar. You go by the location that most of his body is there. So I explain in my book, Biura Klomar Berashi al Hashas. Here you have a Rashi that said, Klomar Batar Rubo Shadin Alei, וכיוון דלא הביא אלא רגלו אחת חוץ לתחום, עדיין רובו בתוך התחום, הילקח ייכנס. So there are several options to understand the word nizkar. So some said it's like in Hebrew nizdaker, that it stand high, and there are others who said nizrak is like throwing away. That's the Dikdukei Sofrim said. So it means that one leg can go by the large part of the body, and therefore the halakha is that he needs to enter. But here we just express the reason, we don't bring the halakha, and the halakha is going by the first brayta. So Rashi used here klomar to say that batal grubo shadin alei. So the word nizkar is substitute to the word yikanes. Again, we don't have enough time, otherwise I'll go further with this. So he said here, Ika de Amri, there are those who go the opposite way. Amar Rabbi Chanina raglo achad betoch hatchum raglo achad chutz latchum. There's two legs, each of them in different place. Yikanes, we should return to the previous location. Dichtiv, im tashiv mi Shabbat raglecha. It's written without yud, so it's like individual. Raglecha karinan. It's like plural. So a person did not violate Shabbat until he used his both feet
outside the
right. So Tanya lo yikanes, but the other brayta said that he should not return. So the Gemara said, "Hu de amar ka'acherim." The Tanya lemakom sherubo nizkar. Again, you go by the place that most of his body. Then we learn in Mishnah Rabbi Eliezer omer shtayim yikanes shalosh lo yikanes. והתניא רבי אליעזר אומר אחת ייכנס שתיים לא ייכנס, so it's different than we said. ולא קשיא דאקר חדה וכמה תרתי, דאקר תרתי וכמה תלת. Here they have two and come the third, here's the two and the third one. So it's a full 2 cubits, and then he entered on the third one, so therefore he should not enter. והתניא רבי אליעזר אומר אפילו אמה אחת לא ייכנס, he said even one. כי תניא היא למודד, that's only if one who's taking measurement. Ditnan, we will learn in Mitzvah Shem in the Mishnah 61. Ulemoded, someone who's measuring, he's a traveler. Shamru notnim lo 2,000 amah, to go by 2,000 cubit. Afilu sof midato kale b'me'ara. Even if his measurement ended in the cave, he may not walk even 1 cubit beyond his measurement. So here, that's the way Rashi explained. Tosfot have a different way. But again, we don't have time. I encourage you to also to see the Maharsha. The last Mishnah in the Perek. Mi shechshich chutz latchum. If unfortunately someone was traveler and is stuck outside of Shabbat limit, afilu ama achat lo yikanes, not even one cubit. Rabbi Shimon אומר אפילו 15 אמות. Rabbi Shimon said not necessarily 15. He says any place close to the city. That's, by the way, the first explanation, Rashi. The second one, it's specific 15. I wish to have time to go through that explanation. Yikanes. She'ena meshochot mematzin et hamidot. That because the surveyors do not precisely demarket the measurements, so they mark the Shabbat limit within the 2,000 cubits. Why? Mipnei atoim, to those who make a mistake. So what does that mean, mipnei atoim? Tana, we learn in the Braita, mipnei to'ei amidah, for those who make mistake in their measurement, because they put the sign a little before the end of that Shabbat limit, and people misunderstand it, and they go and exceed that spot, and then they return. So they always make a little less for those who make those mistakes. So that's the idea in the Mishnah. Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 4:10. If a messenger was sent before the onset of Shabbat by the residents of the town to establish an Eruv for them with food, and he returned without having established an Eruv, since he set out on the way, he established his residence in the location he intended, and may walk there on Shabbat. So therefore, it's prohibited to other residents on the town to do so. Only if, he said, only a poor person or one who was walking along the road may establish his residence in a particular location. However, the residents of a city who spend Shabbat evening in their homes cannot do it, may not do so. Then we said, le'achzik, if a person sets out his way and then return, he does not have to say that he seeks to establish his residence in a particular place. He needs only intend to do so. Nevertheless, he must set out on his way. So that's the opinion of Rabbi Yossi and Rav Yosef. Misha sachus latchum, if a person intentionally, that's what David has, went even 1 cubit beyond his Shabbat limit, he may not re-enter. That's the Magen Avraham hold, and the Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 405. But if he was forced out, or if he did not, or if he did so to perform a mitzvah, we are lenient, and we say that his limit is incorporated with his own town. We ask also if it's 1 leg and 1 leg. So he said, so we go by the second version of the Braita that said that mainly you go by what is the most of his body. And the last halacha, if night fell when a person was beyond a town's Shabbat limit, if he was only 1 cubit beyond the limit, he may not enter the town. However, if he has a full Shabbat limit from the residence that he established, then it's a different story. But that's based on Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 405. Hadran alach mishotziuhu. We're going to revisit in Mitzvah Hashem this Perek Revi of Tractate Eiruvin.
Kar tu